Hello, we are coming to you from Global Bird Fair 2026. I am here at the National Wildlife Crime Unit stand and I am joined by PC Gavin Ross. Hi.
Hello.
Thank you very much for talking to us.
Very welcome.
I wondered if you could please tell us and the viewers what the National Wildlife Crime Unit does and what your role within that is.
Okay, so we're a UK unit, relatively small, there's 18 of us, and we're a mixture of warranted police officers. So for example, I'm a Police Scotland officer, seconded out of Police Scotland to the UK unit. I've been in the unit nearly 6 years, and I'm an investigative support officer covering Scotland, although obviously we do travel south of the border as well. I've got other colleagues who are police officers and detectives, but the majority in the unit are civilians, so intelligence officers, analysts, people like that, because a lot of what we deal with is serious and organised crime, so we require a lot of analytical work and intelligence work to create packages analysing these people, and now we're developing financial aspect to it, so people doing financial intelligence. So we're definitely a small unit, but utilising all the investigative tools we possibly can to deal with what we view, or what clearly is now evidence as serious and organised crime.
Thank you. So could you tell us a little bit more about this new legislation that's come in Scotland and what maybe changes you've seen in Scotland because of that legislation?
So, because of yourselves, in relation to hen harriers, I assume you're talking about protection of raptors legislation. So there is big differences between Scotland and England, and the legislation that over the years, and this is many years we've had this, it started off with vicarious liability. So if we charge a gamekeeper, for example, that same charge can potentially, theoretically, go up to the head gamekeeper, the factor, even the owner. In terms of vicarious liability, someone is vicariously responsible for somebody below him having committed a crime. After that, we've got the general licence restrictions. So very often we will have an investigation that, at a civil burden of proof, I can state categorically it was somebody associated to this area of land that has committed that crime. I just can't evidence who. So from that, I write a report that goes to Nature Scot, and they can withdraw their right to use the general licences. Now there's an appeal process. They can also apply for individual licences, but it is a way of affecting them, and I think the states that are committing the crime don't like it because it's very public. That gets publicised, so it's a black mark on them. And then the most recent one is grouse moor licensing.
Yeah.
So we've had that now for over a year. We haven't utilised that, so I haven't written any reports in relation to crimes that have occurred on grouse moors that could potentially lead to Nature Scot removing the right to use that general licence, which is the sanction that they potentially have. But that's a good thing if not had to report it, because the point I see of these legislative changes is to put protection measures in place to prevent people, make them think, I'd better not commit the crime because. Now, we have all these tools. England doesn't have any of them, but I believe that there may be some legislative change coming in the future that would be positive. And the knock-on effect of these legislative differences is the crime modus operandi is different in Scotland as to what it is in England. We have very little poisoning. Now, we undoubtedly still have raptor persecution taking place, but I think they've had to change their MO. So, for example, with poisoning, we have a lot of eagles that are with sat tags attached to their backs. If one of them eats a poison, it may not die on the poison, it may die elsewhere. The person that's put that poison down wouldn't know that has happened, but that tag will still keep pinging, but pinging a static signal. We get notified of that. We can then we would analyse the data, decide if there's something suspicious, and if we think there is, then we've got grounds under legislation to go and search the land without warrant. And that's what we do, and we would recover that, and that starts an investigative ball rolling. Absolutely.
When a potential case comes to the National Wildlife Crime Unit that you think you might need to investigate, what is the chain reaction then? What happens when that comes to you, and what techniques or equipment or specialists do you need to involve in those kinds of cases?
Yep, so in relation to hen harriers, the most common starting point is we get a notification from one of the organisations that's monitoring a satellite tag to say that it's either sudden stop, no malfunction, or it's a stationary tag. We don't take anybody's word for that, so we get the raw data to us and we'll analyse that. And not just that immediate end point, we'll go way back to look if has this happened before, is there any inconsistencies, what's happening with this tag, what's its normal patterns, and is there a sudden inconsistency, so something's happening. We've got one person in-house, James Leonard, who's a bit of a guru on the SAT tags, but there's a group of, I think it's 5 of us, who share on-call duties. So we provide a 7-day-a-week on-call function that people can contact us, and they'll tell us, I've got something suspicious, and they'll do a formal referral, but we don't take anybody's word for anything. We don't look at what their suspicions are, we look at the data. So it's not like we just take anyone's word for anything. We look at the data and then decide, is there something suspicious having happened here? And there's lots of columns of data that could give rise to a suspicion. If we decide I am suspicious a crime may have occurred, then under section 19.2 of the Wildlife and Countryside Act, we then have the powers to go and search land without warrant. So depending on the circumstance, you may do a low-key, semi-covert search, say for example it's a static tag, to do a recovery and then out. If it's a stop no malfunction, then I think we'd probably try to, we then make the local force aware of it and try and do a decent search and utilising a number of resources. So ourselves, the police force, we've got specially trained dogs that are trained to recover bodies. I've used them a few times and it is incredible what they can find. I remember going out and we had a line team of specialist police search, and they searched this hillside backwards and forwards like they would, shoulder to shoulder, search, found nothing, dog went on and found 10 things in 5 minutes. So it's absolutely incredible. It's great. So dogs, drones, we've got an in-house drone capability. And I'll not go into it too much, but we have created new technology on drones that will assist us in relation to them. Things that are very, very hard on the ground, stick that technology on a drone and it opens up a whole new area. So there's a lot of things that we're doing, but I don't want to reveal all our cards, if you know what I mean.
No, of course. Thank you. Can you tell us how long you've been doing this sort of role?
That just reveals the fact I'm really old. So I've been in the police 27 and a half years. An unusual situation that I became a wildlife crime officer when I only had about a year's service. But that was just an addition to whatever my day job was for the first 20 or so years of my service. So I was an occasional wildlife crime officer when incidents came in. But it was difficult juggling that with whatever my day job was. And then I was lucky 6 years ago or so to get this job. So I'm full-time seconded out of Police Scotland, the National Wildlife Crime Unit. So
in all of that time, can you remember your first search of a grouse moor?
I can, yep. It was an estate in southern Scotland. I remember it being a massive eye-opener because even though this was probably about 24, 25 years ago, I remember doing the underkeepers' cottages. That was the area we were searching. There was dog kennels sort of perpendicular to the cottages, and there was a gap behind the dog kennels to a dry stone dike, a stone wall, and I remember walking down there, and stuck in that wall was a dead tawny owl, a dead barn owl, a dead kestrel, a dead sparrowhawk, just huge volumes of small raptors that had been shot for no reason. Now, I'll never, ever, ever excuse the activity of somebody illegally killing a bird of prey, but I understand that they've got a motive. There's no motive even for killing any of these small raptors that are no threat to them, although I have in recent years discovered that apparently, and it's gamekeepers that have told me this, that they don't just kill birds of prey because they take grouse. They will also kill, for example, a large owl or even a heron, because on the day of a shoot, a big bird like that sailing over grouse will cause the grouse to hunker down into the heather and not take off when the beaters reach them to drive them towards the chute. So they're not just killed because they take grouse, they're killed because they're a nuisance as well. And that sits very uncomfortably with me, I have to say. Yeah.
Do you remember what happened in that case? Are you able to say?
I think that was the first case where there was ever a general licence restriction imposed on a estate. If it wasn't that case, it was the next time I searched that estate. I've been on there a few times.
Okay. What role can you see other gamekeepers playing in helping prevent wildlife crime on gamekeepers' lands?
I think that's a really good question from the point of view that in wider policing, you can't enforce your way out of a problem. And this is a problem that is associated to traditional activities. It's associated to a multi-million-pound industry. It's associated to business models that, from my point of view, are potentially flawed, because it requires complete predator eradication for maximum available grouse to be shot. However, there are some amazing estates which are full of wildlife, and the story to tell on these estates is amazing in terms of people who go shooting there will see eagles, will see harriers, will work with dogs for a walked up shoot, that sort of thing. I think that's really good. And I see that as I'd like to see that as a future of that industry, more towards that than bag size. I do think that a lot of people involved in that industry perhaps feel a lot of people are having a go at them. And as an analogy, they're like something trapped in the corner of a room, and there's a load of baying animals having a go, and they're trying to fight their way out, rather than listen to what the issues are. Because the truth is, we have grouse moor licensing in Scotland because of criminal activity that took place, say, from the year 2000 onwards. That was the stats that were assessed, the incidents that were assessed to evidence that the fact the criminality is still taking place. So it was the behaviour of gamekeepers that led to this legislation. If they had been squeaky clean, if these crimes hadn't taken place, they wouldn't now be legislated against. It's not like outsiders are having a go. It's coming from within. So the change has to come from within. I think some of the shooting organisations are absolutely superb, and we have really good relations with them. And I think to utilise them to highlight. I think effectively where we're going is, if I want a keeper or whoever else, anybody who's going to commit a wildlife crime, just before they commit that crime, I want them to think of the potential ramifications of that, and that's enough to make them stop. Because they've got to think, okay, I know there's nobody about, I might not get caught for it, but there's still consequence to that action. And that sort of prevention angle is really good. So for example, recently we've been running an operation, and it's involved simple, basically community policing techniques of knocking on doors, putting up signage, just talking to people. And that has led to success of, or it's difficult to quantify, but I believe, like for example, I've got a nest from last year that had failed, I believe it's 7 years in a row, it succeeded, that's peregrine falcon. Another one from this year, it had failed under suspicious circumstances 20 years in a row, and a number of peregrines fledged last week. So that's an easy win. I'm happy if I'm knocking on doors, putting leaflets out, putting some signs up, chatting to people. If that's enough to stop the crime, that's more important than the crime happening and then catching somebody for it.
Big money question. How do you feel about the future in the UK for birds of prey? In particular, the hen harrier. Is it a positive story?
We're in a time of change. So if I reflect upon the area that I work, so I live in south of Scotland, and for example, my example is we've got the South of Scotland Golden Eel project. So they, under licence, are translocating birds where there's healthy large populations such as Outer Hebrides down to the south of Scotland, because it's scientific evidence they're not going to move and recolonate these areas themselves. They need a helping hand. And that project's been working really, really well. Massive success. Unfortunately, this year there has been some negatives. At least 2 of their birds have been shot this year. So you're creating new human-wildlife conflict areas where certain things like eagles there have historically been almost made locally extinct in these areas. Put it back, you're reigniting that conflict. But it's up to people to behave themselves, and if you happen to now have this bird back there, you know you can't break the law. Hen harriers is, I don't like the sticking to stats too much, because yes, a few years ago, was it you'll know better than me, 2016, something like 2 nesting pairs of harriers in the whole of England, and now it's viewed as a success because there's more than that. It's still a tiny amount compared to what there should be. It's just the starting point is too low, and the increase is too slow as well. I think I ask for a lot, I want to see dramatic change, I just want the crime to stop. And I think if the crime is removed, then we would see an exponential growth.
If you want to support the work that Hen Harrier Action does, which also helps support the work that the National Wildlife Crime Unit does, then please do head over to our website, that is henharrierday.uk, and you can find out all the amazing stuff that we do there. We often run fundraisers to help fund satellite tags. We also run fundraisers to help fund training up these amazing dogs that we talked about, and deploying the conservation dogs that help track down and find birds that have been persecuted. And Gavin, you had something to say?
I have to remember that not all, in fact, very few, a very small proportion of hen harriers have satellite tags fitted. So we can't just rely on that as our sole intelligence source. The public, Operation Owl is encouraging the public, if you see something suspicious, report it to the police. I don't need you to tell me that this is the crime that's happened, this is who did it, this is when they did it, this is how they did it. No, you're suspicious of something, that's not right, whatever that might be, you suspect a wildlife crime may have been committed, contact the police.